Colleen, why don't you start off, and then I'll give my intro and jump in.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen. A lot of you I know on the call. Thanks for coming. I'm VP of Insight Solutions at Caddle, and very excited to present to you with what we've been doing for the last since June on all of the CX tracking.
This is Colleen's very first webinar, so she's super nervous. I'm kidding.
Third, but
okay. Third. There'll be a lot of teasing, I'm sure, throughout the deck, so I figured I'd get the jump on her. My name's Ransom. I know most of you as well. I'm the CEO here at Caddle, and we're excited to present to you some findings from 3 separate studies that are tracking on a week-to-week basis, including customer experience from bricks and mortar, e-com, which started about 6 or 7 weeks ago, as well as a holiday tracker that we launched at the beginning of the shopper season. So all of which will be included in this webinar. So we're excited to jump in. We'll first give you a quick overview of the Caddle platform, then we'll start with bricks and mortar, grocery e-com. We'll jump into our holiday tracker, and then we'll talk to key takeaways and next steps. So for those of you who are not familiar, Caddle is a mobile-first consumer insights platform. We have desktop as well, but about 80% of our traffic goes to mobile, and we reward our first-party panel that we recruit and retain and engage. We reward them through engaging with brands and sharing their data. And we can engage with them in a number of different ways through video or other stimuli, could be images, survey, as well as receipts and photo capture, post action surveys and reviews. And because everything 100% is done through our first party panel, we're able to re-engage with those members on an ongoing basis to allow the clients that we work with more agility in capturing data faster, more cost effectively at every stage of the consumer journey. And I will mention as well that in terms of the size of our panel, we have about 10,000 daily active members and over 100,000 monthly active members, which in terms of scale is anywhere from 3 to 5 times other insights platforms within the Canadian market. So that enables speed as well. In terms of who our panelists are, we have Canadians from all walks of life. We recently did a Environics Prism profiling for a week's worth of our panelists, which we're happy to make available. What we found is that just within a week's worth of our active members, we had representation across all 68 prisms at Environics, which means we have diversity across almost every type of Canadian, every walk of life, which is great. What that means for the clients that we work with is that they have access to a very diverse and complex Canadian audience, more diverse than any other platform can offer. We have a few popular panels on the right-hand side, which we've actually pulled from to pull into the data into this deck, but it's certainly not limited to that. There are certain categories that are popular and tapped into on an ongoing basis, but then there are other audiences that we can build because of our large daily active base overnight, literally. It could be specific brand shoppers or frequency-based, or perhaps it's a niche audience that you're looking for that you haven't been able to find on other platforms, so we can certainly provide. This is a snapshot of some of the different tools that we have. There are 5 different tools that we can tap into and use in different configurations and sequences, whether it be one-time, a tracker, or longitudinal, or a short omnibus, or something longer like a conjoint or UNA, whether you're wearing a shopper marketing hat, insights, category, brand, or looking more into e-com, there's something that Caddle can help with by leveraging our tools. And most of you are familiar with that. I just wanted to give you a quick refresher, and now we can jump in. In terms of our customer experience, so today we're going to talk about bricks and mortar as well as e-com in isolation. There are 2 different studies that we conducted that refresh on a weekly basis, which we'll speak to when we get to each of those slides. What we've done is, because of our panel, we have the ability to capture things like receipts and then unlock surveys, and in this case, specifically focused on customer experience. When it comes to e-com, we can use our declared data on a weekly basis to a very large panel to get a weekly recurrence and cadence of this data, which is very interesting as you start to look over time, or the ability to isolate certain audiences or periods very easily. So for bricks and mortar, we looked at the top 12 grocery banners across Canada. We looked across 9 different attributes for bricks and mortar specifically. The standard Net Promoter Score, and we'll share a little bit more on what a Net Promoter Score is for those of you who aren't familiar in the coming slides, of about recommending to friends and family. We also looked at speed of shopping and checkout, layout and signage, customer experience in store and service, cleanliness and hygiene, product availability, brand availability, fresh food availability where applicable, and value for price. And this is, so for this specific study, the way it works is on a weekly basis, we reward our panel for uploading pictures of their receipts, which is a very natural extension of what they're doing. So at any of these retailers, they can upload a picture of their receipt, and then that unlocks a post-purchase customer experience survey. And this refreshes on a weekly basis, so we have a recurring quota at each of these banners that we're getting weekly. And that kicked off in June, so we have a rich data set to pull from. What we found in bricks and mortar is that Costco was the winner in terms of Net Promoter Score, at the score of 72, and we'll speak to what that number means in just a moment. And Walmart was the lowest of the 12 at 46. What's important to note is that a Net Promoter Score of 46 in isolation is a good score. It's actually a very good score. So while a number of retailers, ones we've been working with and directly working with through agencies and CX providers, when they look at their Net Promoter Score in isolation, which is most of them are limited to just that data set, but some have competitive data, but it's limited. You would see a 46 and see that's quite a healthy number. You have far more people promoting your brand than you do detracting from it. But when you look at that compared to the rest of the retail landscape in Canada and the attributes, it's quite telling to see where there's the winners and losers by attribute. But overall, Costco is the winner, and Walmart over this entire period from June until November. And we're still continuing to track week over week, but we're just looking at that period here. This is where the ranking stood out. Overall, and we looked at banners, so something like a No Frills or a Maxi in Quebec, we can isolate those by region as well, but we put them together where it made sense. This is the ranking from top to bottom. So you'll see all of which have a positive Net Promoter Score, which is, it's the percent of promoters. So when you ask a Costco member, for example, after they've uploaded a picture of their receipt, how likely are you to recommend to a friend or family on a scale of 0 to 10? Those that select 9 or 10 are seen as promoters, and those who respond 0 to 6 are seen as detractors. So a positive number means that you have more promoters than you do detractors, which is why a score of 46 would be applauded in isolation, but when you look at it compared to the other retailers, there's certainly some ground to gain. So we're going to break down a few of the data points that we found as to why certain retailers are winning and losing, and also some nuances amongst millennials and boomers in the coming slides. And then we'll look at e-com as well. What we found when we look at average Net Promoter Score for boomers and millennials across every attribute, boomers were rated a higher score overall. And whether that's related to being more generous or less time constrained versus a millennial, there are also, or perhaps millennials being more critical, there are also programs in market catering more towards some of the older boomers, which allowed them to access retailers at maybe more convenient times or earlier, or have better access. But overall, important thing to note is that baby boomers overall rated every attribute, every retailer higher than millennials did. We also, so this is a lot to take in as a slide, but it's the color coding still lends to millennials versus baby boomers. We then look at each of the attributes that we covered, which are on the left-hand side. And then within each of those boxes, it's where that retailer ranked within that attribute. So there's a 1 to 12 score because there's 12 retailers. So as an example, if we look at value for price amongst millennials across all retailers, Costco ranked #1, and amongst boomers, it ranked #4. And if you follow that across horizontally, you'll see that #1 amongst boomers was No Frills. So the next few slides are going to look at a few of these key data points within this chart, and we'll make this available as well after the fact. But what we found is that one-stop shops and quick fill-ins are really what's driving the customer experience winners in that ranking that we had seen, which is not really surprising. If you think about Costco, who ranked #1, their value for price is strong, and then you look at 4 out of the 5 top ranking Net Promoter Score retailers in bricks and mortar, they're on the value spectrum. So Costco at the more expensive value end, but also including No Frills and Maxi, Giant Tiger, and Dollarama as well. But not to miss Shoppers Drug Mart, which is priced at a premium, but allows for speed in the format that they're moving in and out of, in terms of consumers being able to check out and get in and get what they need fast, and especially the stores that offer things like bread and milk and eggs at a good value. But you'll see amongst both boomers and millennial, they ranked in the bottom third, or sort of bottom quartile of value. So value is important. As I mentioned, 4 of the 5 retailers are promoting value, but there is more. As you'll see, Shoppers Drug Mart really knocked it out of the park on top 5 attributes, lending to their top 3 ranking in Net Promoter Score. So when we talk about value across the board, again, I mentioned 4 of the 5 are value players. Costco at the higher end basket of value, and then lower end being No Frills and Giant Tiger and Dollarama. What's important to note as well is that Walmart and Everyday Low Price and all the work they're doing to promote value, it wasn't recognized in the study. As you'll see, they ranked 7 and 8 amongst millennial and boomers. So in terms of what's important to winning in bricks and mortar, there are the one-stop shops and providing value, but nailing customer experience, nailing hygiene, and of course, nailing that ability to get in and out of store very quickly is what's driving the winners, and what we've seen continue to drive, and that changing and ranking week over week, which is something that we're going to continue to track, especially as we head into potential more lockdowns across Ontario and Canada.
We may want to add to Ransom to that Walmart number that this data was taken as of early December last week, and the announcement of the elimination of the Walmart price matching program could also be playing into these numbers in a lower third, an 8 and a 7 from boomers and millennials on the Walmart value for price.
Yeah, but that's a great point. So we know that in October, Walmart ended their price matching program. And so it's very easy for us to isolate, October onwards, or perhaps maybe a 4-week period where there's a bit of backlash, and see how that ranking and value changes over time versus prior to program, and maybe there's potentially an ongoing halo effect that happens, or maybe it rebounds. But we'll be able to see that over the coming weeks and break that out easily. In addition to the data that we have, and we provide a key driver report, which is available at no cost, the first report that we have, we also have a dashboard, and the dashboard is Excel-based. It can also be exported into Power BI, and it allows you to look at individual retailers and individual weeks and demographic profile breakdowns like gender, region, age, as well as things like household income. So it's very easy to be able to slice the data to look at things like that and those anomalies. Mm-hmm. So to cap off on bricks and mortar customer experience, we touched on one-stop shops and quick fills being important, all surrounding COVID, and the need to get in and out, and also time-related, and making sure that they're feeling safe and throughout this pandemic. Value and speed are what's driving and rounding out that top 5 ranking amongst retailers. As a refresher, it's Costco at number 1, No Frills and Maxi at number 2, Shoppers Drug Mart and Pharmaprix at number 3, and then Giant Tiger and Dollarama at 4 and 5. And lastly, baby boomers' expectations of customer experience are lower, as well as some of the plans put in place to accommodate some of the older boomers as well have likely led to their higher rankings amongst the retailers across the attributes. So what we found is when we launched in June the customer experience tracker for bricks and mortar, our retail partners were asking for more and asking for e-com, which is really not surprising. We wish we thought of that idea ourselves first. pushed in this direction, and we started collecting this data as of October 19th. So a bit of a different approach in terms of methodology. Because e-com collecting receipts is a little more difficult, what we do on every Monday, we target 5,000 primary grocery shoppers, which is collected within a day. We ask them get declared data around where they shopped for groceries within the past week. And then we ask them a series of 19 questions around that experience. And we're happy to share that design as well if you'd like to see that. But quite a different, so still measuring customer experience, but of course a very different set of data points and measuring things like Instacart and click and collect versus home delivery, and also different attributes. So we've got 5 weeks of data that we're going to show you here, but similar to bricks and mortar, we are still continuing to collect this data week over week over week. So this sample size is growing. It grows by about 1,400 to 1,500 every week. Of that 5,000, we see that conversion of about 1,400 to 1,500 people buying groceries online every week. So this is continuing to grow, and we'll be continuing to collect that in perpetuity. So some of the data points that we have and some of the smaller players like Voila and London Drugs, they're a smaller data set, and we call that out, but they are going to continue to grow and get a more substantial sample size we'll be able to pull from. The attributes that we're going to, that we measured are easy to pick up order if you were click and collect, how user-friendly the app and site were, availability of items, fresh food quality were available, payment options, keeping you updated. So if you think about things like where your product is, and how the order is going and when it's going to deliver and what time it will be delivered, order availability and quick delivery, cleanliness and hygiene, accuracy, and you think about things like substitutes, which is a bit of a soft spot, return policy, and then pricing online versus in person. So there are some of the retailers have a elevated price on e-com versus what you'd find in store, and then secure transaction, which is related to privacy and how consumers feel. So 4 key takeaways from the first 5 weeks of data is, I don't think it's surprising to anyone, but Amazon took first place in 7 out of the 12 attributes, and we're top 3 in 11 out of the 12, which the next coming slides will help illustrate that. What we found is that home delivery versus click and collect, it was an even 50-50 split. Of the 7,000 plus people, 50,000 ordered their groceries for home delivery. Of the 7,000, 50% ordered groceries for home delivery, and the other 50% were click and collect, so it was an even split. When you exclude Amazon, it has an impact, but it's not a huge one. Shifts marginally to 43% were home delivery and 57% were click and collect. And then when you exclude PC Express, which is almost exclusively except through Instacart, when you exclude them, it shifts in the other direction because they are almost exclusively click and collect. It shifts to 58% home delivery and 42% click and collect. But what it means is that both avenues are critical to winning, and we've got a few slides on those because right now they're essentially split. In terms of loyalty, what we found is 50% of consumers are likely to use a different retailer the next time they shop. So consumers are shopping around, they're not necessarily tied to a specific retailer. So, and we've got a breakdown of a few of the shifts in those retailers in the coming slides as well. And the top 3 attributes as key drivers. So what a key driver is it's a the attribute that specific retailers can focus on to increase their Net Promoter Score. And there was a commonality across the retailers in e-com that we tested amongst. So if you really wanted to increase your net promoters, the people that are going to promote your brand, who responded 9 or 10 to recommending you to a friend or family, the top 3 attributes to driving that most commonly are user-friendly app and site, availability of items, and fresh food quality. Now we break out each of the top 3 attributes for each retailer in bricks and mortar and in e-com, and that's in a separate deck that we're happy to share as well. Our first wave of this data is available at no cost if you'd like to see it. All right, so you'll see a similar layout. Amazon took number 1, as we had talked about, with a Net Promoter Score of 67. We did see a negative Net Promoter Score of about -14. Now that was with a smaller sample size in Western Canada of less than 100. I think we were looking at 60 or so directional. In terms of the whole ranking, same calculation for Net Promoter Score. We were looking across all banners, and Amazon took number 1, followed by Costco.ca and PC Express. We also measured Voila.ca, and really when we looked at which banners to measure in bricks and mortar and within e-com, we looked at the top banners or banners that are looking to accelerate things quickly. And Voila was included in the set because it is right now just included within the GTA, but they are looking for aggressive expansion plans. So we're going to be tracking how that grows over time. So I'd spoken to those key drivers. They are broken out into each of the retailers as mentioned in a separate deck. But when we talk about key drivers, they are not necessarily the top drivers at those individual retailers, but they are the attributes that, if focused on, will drive the highest increase in Net Promoter Score. And as mentioned, those were focused around a few of those app-friendly user experience and fresh product, as well as product availability. All right, so this is the ranking across the 12 different attributes that we had measured, and the color coding of the boxes is the ranking. So if you look at anywhere where there's a green box, that's where that specific retailer ranked number 1. And when we talk about Amazon ranking number 1 in 7 out of the 12 attributes, you'll see Amazon right across the top. They have green boxes across 7 of the attributes because they ranked the best in user-friendly app site, availability of items, keeping you updated, order availability, return policy, pricing online, and secure transaction. And so it's not surprising. I mean, all of the other players are bricks and mortar who are doing e-com. Now, Grocery Gateway has been around for a while as well through Longo's, but it's still a bricks and mortar player who are offering e-com, whereas Amazon is until recently a pure play e-com player with bricks and mortar presence, small presence in Whole Foods, as well as some of their new stores in the US. So it's not surprising that they are winning in e-com and are poised to continue to win. They really were set up for this whole COVID pandemic. But you'll see that there are certain attributes where they're not winning. And what's amongst the ranking with Costco and PC Express, there's also some early signs, albeit small sample size, that Voila is performing well in a few areas as well. So we're going to look at a few of these areas, and we mentioned around user-friendly app and site, availability of items, and fresh food quality being some of the really key areas where these e-com retailers can focus in order to increase customer experience and overall Net Promoter Score. Top 3 are Amazon, Costco.ca, and PC Express. And Amazon is a clear winner. What you'll see is that, again, these numbers are relative, but in isolation, anything positive means that you have more people promoting your brand than you do detracting it, which means you have more people rating that experience, that you have a user-friendly app and site as a 9 or a 10 than you do of people who have rating it from a 0 to 6. But you'll see a score of a 68 or 59 or 53 is still incredibly impressive. It means a very large percentage are rating that experience as a 9 or a 10. Availability of items. So Amazon ranks #1 in this area as well. Costco ranks high, which was a little bit surprising to us at first, given the limited assortment, but Costco.ca has an expanded assortment, just not as much as some of the other sites in terms of their SKU assortment, but still ranked #2. And then we saw Save on Foods take that #3 spot with a PC Express close behind at #4. Voila. So you'll see Voila ranks #1 in 4 of the attributes, and we're continuing to track this. We've got a few more weeks under our belt of the data we've collected. And I think we're looking at so it's sample size less than 100. I believe it's a 60 or 70 person sample size, and that's primarily within the GTA. But in terms of fresh food quality and everything that they're doing with collecting that order through the use of robots and automation and addressing that a quality concern or being able to touch and feel or make sure that that produce is fresh, looks like their early signs are they're addressing it well as some of the other areas where order accuracy, payment options, and ease of pickup are winning. So we're going to unpack a little bit about of the delivery versus click and collect. And we were surprised to see that it was really split down the center. When we do isolate some of the retailers, it changes a little bit, but it is more or less a 50-50 split. When we look at certain retailers in isolation, PC Express has a 90% click and collect, a 10% home delivery, and that's done primarily through Instacart. And through the data that we've collected, and what we've seen is that this is really a diligent and concerted effort to drive click and collect. And I'm sure many of you have seen the Walmart ads and how much they're pushing click and collect versus home delivery. So it's not surprising to see a number like this with PC Express given their capabilities. But when you look at something like Walmart.ca, having over 70% click and collect, when they have a very robust and well-oiled machine and e-com for home delivery, seeing that 71% are actually opting to do click and collect, really means that their advertising efforts are paying off, as you would have seen. And it's important to be able to offer this and win in this space as 2 out of the top 3 big retailers. So we've seen this, I'm sure all of us, no longer our morning commute, but you've seen these PC Express pickup centers along GO train routes. You've seen the ads, or there's certain sections or parking spots that are allocated in the different Loblaw banners and Walmart banners. And we know that from the results that it's resonating in a lot of consumers. So not just as a percentage of these purchases that are going to click and collect, but when you look at surveying 5,000 primary grocery shoppers as a Canadian representative sample across the country, 1,400 or 1,500 are opting to order groceries on e-com on a weekly basis, which is a significant amount week over week over week. So the advertising efforts are paying off, as well as it is a preferred method for consumers to drive to store and pick up versus go shopping. And I think that's accelerated through the pandemic as well, and not having to go in store and risk that. If you look at the retailers, so one of the questions we ask is around if they're going to, their likelihood of trying a different retailer for their grocery e-com purchase the next week. And changing retailers, and those that are offering click and collect and pushing that, they're much stickier. So amongst PC Express and Walmart, those that indicated that they were likely to change after the most recent purchase, only about 1/3, as well as 46% with Walmart. And then those that don't offer a click and collect option, there's a much higher likelihood they're going to switch retailers. And this is also understanding the omni-channel shop, and something like an Amazon where you may not be able to get everything that you need, including fresh, or something like a Costco you may be ordering certain offers. So there's still a bit of a grain of salt that you can take with the data, because there's so much interaction with e-com and different retailers and different need states for what you're ordering, as well as how that interacts with bricks and mortar. But the data does show that having a click and collect option makes that retailer as a brand more sticky, and consumers less likely to switch.
I think important to note here as well that Sobeys does not have click and collect option in a lot of markets. I know they do out in the East Coast, but perhaps their success with using robots and fresh food quality, and as shown by their #1 rating in that department, they're banking on that experience to be good enough for them not to need it. So that's something to contemplate there. We can also dig into the data to pull that out and re-engage those consumers to confirm that.
Yeah, and I think you raised an important point there, Colleen, along our ability to connect with any of the consumers that responded to any of the studies at any point in time, because everything is our first party panel. If you had wanted to dig into why Amazon is rated so high in a specific attribute, or you wanted to look at all the members who have done a PC Express click and collect in the past month and conduct a survey to understand more about that experience. Any response to any question or any action on the Caddle platform is tied to a specific member, so we can easily isolate those members and follow up with any of our tools.
And one last thing about this is we're the kind of next initiative in e-com groceries ratings and reviews. Walmart, Costco, Amazon have reviews on the majority of their items, and what is that doing to the consumer? So that is something that we can focus on as we move through the e-com study. And if anyone wanted to subscribe to that information, they would have the ability to customize some questions in that department to determine if they needed to move up the launch of this type of thing, now that that Walmart's been seeing some success and conversions with ratings and reviews.
Yeah, and through our discussions with the retail partners, I mean, everyone knows it's critically important. I mean, it's surprising how many retailers within Canada either have no ratings and reviews presence online, or very limited, depending on the banner. It's known to be important, and so we conducted a study in June to ask consumers about the importance of ratings and reviews across different categories and segments, not just in grocery. And what they deem as an appropriate amount of reviews, and as well as frequency and refreshing, and how often and how old reviews impact their purchase decision, how no reviews purchase their impact decision. So we're actually refreshing that study. So if there is anyone who's interested in understanding certain attributes, you can certainly access that data. We're going to be providing that study to our clients at no cost. And if there's something that we can do to include something custom, we'd be happy to look at that as well. Okay, I'll pass it over to.
All right, here's where I take over. In a lot of our conversations during the pandemic with our clients, uncertainty was the reigning theme. Understanding what's going to happen and trying to guess and create what this new normal or next normal will be. We decided to launch the holiday tracker. So we took a look at a representative sample of Canadians each week for the past 4 weeks to really understand intent. And you look at Prime Day, you look at Black Friday, you look at major markets shutting down for malls, Yorkdale, Sherway, all the big holiday money generators are shut down. So understanding what that's going to look like, we wanted to understand each week what they were saying at the beginning, and then maybe they got an eyeball on some really great Black Friday ads, and they scrapped their whole intent, and they gave in to that sale. So we wanted to shed some light on that. There's tons of data in the US, but there really hasn't been anything Canadian that's been tracking behavior. So we've decided to launch that. The first slide, we've got some results. Thanks, Ransom. From Spotify. Overall, obviously, there was a big shift to online. That's not surprising. The data that came out of Shopify was that the average cart price internationally was $82.20 US dollars, while in Canada, the average cart price was $134.55, up from $96.30 last year, which is a big deal. Again, smaller base, e-com's a smaller percentage of our total market than it is in the US, but we're accelerating terms to launch. We're accelerating the timeline that things were supposed to be at a certain level. And surprisingly, the greatest category for purchases was apparel and accessories. And that was struggling during the pandemic. The only category within apparel was athleisure, Lululemons for you're working at home. Health and beauty, not surprising again, because wellness is wrapped into that and the need to stay healthy during the pandemic. And also the last, rounding out the top three, was home and garden. So a lot of displaced vacation dollars going into beautifying your home, extending the season with outdoor patios, heaters, beautifying your backyard, and having a gathering place for your family to get, some space inside and outside during the pandemic. These were all categories that were successful during Black Friday. So by September 7th, we had asked everybody, how they were, like what they had intended and if they had finished their shopping. And 1 in 3 consumers had either finished shopping or are planned not to spend this season as of December 7th. So 21% of consumers have completed their holiday shopping by that time. 23% have not started their Christmas shopping and of the group and haven't even started a list. And 11% do not plan to buy anything during this holiday season. So all of this uncertainty and shift of the Black Friday dollar into November and October, these are all creating habits. And the good question is, will this bleed into 2021 and in the future? Next slide. So we dug into it by category, and we looked at which of the categories were being spent on to date. And clothing and accessories, number 1. We can dig into and re-engage these consumers to break it down by subcategories. So some thought is, the standard socks and underwear, but what portion of this is winter coats for extending visits outside? Potentially fitness categories are, with my pals at Canadian Tire, fitness categories are through the roof. So potentially some new entrants into cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or things outside. So potentially this clothing and accessories category is being driven by those subcategories. Miscellaneous gifts, offline toys for children, still a very strong category. So we found that gift cards and subscriptions were popular. 1 in 5 consumers had already purchased that. And, that could be driven by not being able to get together with your family. Very easy solution to send something either digitally or through a Christmas card in the mail. Subscriptions also, you've got a lot of new technology in the fitness segment. So gifting someone a Peloton or an Apple Fitness Plus subscription or a Netflix or a streaming service for a year is also great. It's low touch and it bridges the gap of not being able to see people.
Well, if you're going to be gifting Pelotons, Colleen, hopefully I'm on your gift list.
They have more than just riding on their Ransom. You can also do a HIIT class. Okay, but we're just going to, from that categorical information, we're just going to touch on a couple of things that we pulled out by category. So not surprising here, men are making all the big entertainment purchases and women are 83% less to buy entertainment items. So the big takeaway here is, fellas on the call, if you're looking for a PS5 this Christmas, you may be disappointed because the wife ain't buying it for you. But yeah, this is some pretty interesting. We can dig into ethnicity, demographics, household income with all of these categories and really understand, re-engage and understand what their behaviors were post-season. The next slide, we dug into gift card purchases. So again, convenience, lack of holiday gatherings, safety, driving the strength of this category. And as I spoke to earlier, there's so many subscription type businesses now, the Just Fabs, the shaving for men, it's in every segment. Skincare is another big subscription business. And these are things that keep giving for the year. And there's a large portion of our of our panel that are moving towards subscription services. And the last one,
we also
here,
look at subscriptions, gift cards specifically. We collected some data, would have been about a year ago now, so may have changed during the pandemic, but you know, as much as I think it's 50%, depending on the industry and retailer or provider, don't get redeemed. So kind of what implications increased gift card or subscription purchases in terms of overall retailer margin could be very favorable.
Of course. And we isolated something interesting. So we found 3.5% of the consumers that spent more than $1,000 to date on December 7th. 65% of those people had planned to spend another $1,000 before the end of the season. So the takeaway here is it really pays to take care of your top spenders if you're a retailer or a brand. Last slide, we found very interesting. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and the reigning theme is Amazon Prime and what they're doing in terms of pulling holiday forward into October, and Subscribe and Save, and what they're doing in terms of pulling dollars out of the weekly shopping basket locally. And what we did in September, we asked people, compared to previous years, how much do you plan on spending during the holiday? So the breakout was a lot more. There's a lot of people planning to spend more. But when we looked at it again in the middle, at the end after Prime Day, about 20% of the people were taken out of that holiday shopping market. They had said they're going to be spending less. And that was eroding what's available in the Black Friday and Cyber Monday pool. So this is significant and could have implications in terms of what the promotional mix is, the categorical mix, online, in-store, and the connected retail or omni-channel of it all. When does it start? And you layer in Singles Day from Alibaba and the habits it's already creating in the US. It's a really interesting topic and sets of behaviors that we can track by household income, ethnicity, as I mentioned, and we can really dig into that and understand what that may look like next year in terms of percentage of spend.
Yeah, I think when I think about when you look at something like Cyber Monday and what industries have been heavily benefiting from COVID and things like construction, the cost of lumber has gone through the roof. Backyard house renovations to make your space more of a haven. You think about something like Cyber Monday, and if the top two box being a lot more and more, being a heavier box at 25% versus 15% if you add the bottom two box, less than a lot less, seems to be more, could potentially be spending on inside the household, whether it be you or your family members. And then if you look at holiday shopping this year versus last year, could potentially be pulling from Cyber Monday because there was more that was done in Cyber Monday, or it could be because you're now looking at things that might be outside of the household and perhaps buying less gifts for people that might be outside of your bubble. But it's and
maybe the total dollar spend is bigger because they've not spent on vacations and or commuting and or huge gas bills, commuting bills with your car. So maybe there is an incremental 20% of dollars available, and this is not going to affect the overall spend for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But it's interesting to understand that shift going forward, because if we do with the vaccine and understanding how that will roll out and when behaviors will get back to normal will be interesting, especially when you've got retailers like Hudson's Bay suing the government. And what will that look like in January and will other retailers join? And I think that, next week when we find out if in major markets, if this is going, in Ontario anyways, if this is going to continue, perhaps there's some more things to happen there, because to order online for last minute gifts is not possible, really. So where will that dollar that has left to be spent, and we talked about at the beginning, there's still people that, 21% of people still haven't finished their shopping. Where is that going to be spent? Will that be gift cards? Will it be subscription? Will it be money transfers? Who knows? So just like framing that up, and we will continue this, and we have just finished the study that goes to the end of this week. But if you want to learn more, give us a call and we can walk you through the most recent data. So final key takeaways: value and speed are king. Millennial loves Shoppers Drug Mart. Click and collect, Walmart winning curbside pickup with clever advertising. Ads matter, focus, messaging and creative, driving desired behavior for PC Express and Walmart. Grocery e-commerce, early success for Voila, prompting case for expansion. I know they're in the next couple of months planning some pretty aggressive moves there. And seasonal shopping, Prime Day, pulling forward the holiday spend, and where will that go for next year, and how will that change as we move into post-vaccine? Sarantha, you want to finish us off as the leader of our company?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Colleen. That was a great job on your first webinar. I'm sorry, she's a seasoned veteran. I get my kicks where I can.
I'm like 20 years older than you. Stop it.
Not true. Okay, so in terms of next steps, agility in research has never been more critical. Caddle was created because of the inability for the data we're collecting and the research we're collecting to match the pace of business today. And whether it's a weekly CX, e-com, bricks and mortar, COVID tracker, holiday tracker, our ability to deliver data in days versus months at a fraction of the cost enables agility in the clients that we work with. And I know there's a number that are on the call today. The risk of not running research, and whether it's relying on US data or using old data, or a personal favorite is defaulting to the most senior person in the room and their gut instinct, which has happened more than we probably all care to admit. Our cost model and our speed, there is, whether it's one question or whether it's a refresh of a UNA because COVID has changed everything, and anything collected pre-COVID is really with a giant asterisk beside it. There is a significant amount of risk in, especially within the COVID market that we're living in today, of refreshing and understanding your consumer and doing so in a much higher cadence and frequency. And with Caddle, of course, you can make better decisions faster, and that's the extent of me pushing Caddle on the web people. So I touched on a lot of these items here in terms of our ability to capture insights faster. We are a proud Canadian owned and operated company. We work with almost every major CPG company and have expanded into retailers as well, with the top retailers across Canada in grocery, as well as working in general merchant mass. So the data you're collecting to empower your marketing efforts, but also your shopper and category teams, as mentioned earlier, we can do so, and we're also integrated with many of the retailers as well. So the data is coming from a place that is familiar.
And with that, Camille back here, we're going to answer some questions. We've got 8 minutes left. There's a few that have been submitted already. If you haven't done so, feel free to use the panel in the GoToWebinar console to submit your questions via text, and we'll do our best to get through them. So the first question that I have here is whether or not you're able to provide both in-store and online customer experience data for a single retailer.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yes. So of the retailer list that we have, it's not exhaustive. There's more regional players. You think about something like maybe a Farm Boy or a Whole Foods or something else for bricks and mortar. We just took the approach of capturing a representative sample of the biggest players. So if there's something that's not represented on the list, or maybe it's underrepresented in terms of sample size, we can just create a target and larger focus on that retailer, whether it be net new or just to drive that like could be a larger sample size of voila, we just target more within the GTA and drive that quota up. So yes, we can target both.
Okay, the next question is whether or not in the demographics you spoke about, you're able to break it out for certain like subcultures like Southeast Asian or demographic and ethnic groups.
Yes. So we have, in addition to the standard, 3 demographic data points that would be age, would be gender, and would be where they live. We have other data points like ethnicity, occupation, education, number of kids, household income, employment status. There are about 25 different standard demographic, behavioral, psychographic elements that we have. And then, of course, any study that we've conducted, that data point is connected to that member as well. And we can layer in additional members. So if you had said, I'd love to look at how Gen Pop and their CX ratings compared to a subset of the population by ethnicity or by household income or any number of factors that we have, it would be very easy for us to add that as a filter within the data, and you can easily toggle between the two.
Great. There was a couple of comments as well in regards to Amazon and Prime and being a Prime member, and maybe some interesting data for us to look further into. I know we're tracking stuff over the holidays and we'll be putting out something on the Prime Shopper in January. But in regards to basket size and frequency of purchase and potentially how sustainability weighs into that, which could be interesting for us to explore. So I don't see any other questions on the line here. I'm just going to pull it up one more time. If anyone hasn't asked and wants to, feel free to do so. But otherwise, we're going to end it there and give you guys back 5 minutes. And thanks everybody for joining today. Please stay tuned for a follow-up recording on our blog if you want to watch it again. And by all means, reach out to the team here if you've got additional questions. And thanks so much. We'll see you guys in the new year.
Thanks everyone.
Hi guys. Thank you.